Krishna. Satyananda Chinta Satye Kapakshe Sarvadhyakshe Bhakti Rakshaditakshe Shri Govinde Vishwasarga Adikande Purnanande Nityamastam Matirme Agyani Radirupaiti Avishesham Bhakti Parava Bhajati Pariposhamuchaihi Tatvam Param Spurati Durgamam Apyajashram Satkunya Vritsprachitam Pranamami Gitam Gauram Sukhas Satkumuda Prabodhi Swabhi Kiyagostamo Nihanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sudhanidharme Manoditishtan Swaratim Karotu Prachina Suvichari Soham Abhyopi Gita Murtale Salipshuhu Ita Prabhore Madeta Tatra Santakshamadvam Sharanagatasya Sudharmanyana Vairagya Sadhya Bhakti Gocharaha Narayana Parabrahma Gita Shastre Sameritah Jnana Karmatmike Anishte Yoga Lakshe Sanskrute Atmana Bhuti Siddharte Purva Shadgena Chotite Nityapasanga Karmeha Gochara Sankhya Yogadihi Dutiye Sadadi Laksha Prokta Tanmoha Shantaye. Hare Krishna, welcome you all for this Gita Sastri course. Today we are in the 18th day, and we will be discussing from second chapter, shloka number 13, 14 and 15. So in the last shloka, in the 12th shloka, Krishna has made a very clear statement that the soul is eternal, just like Lord is eternal. Similarly, the soul is also eternal, and the soul is eternal always. It doesn't produce at a time, and it doesn't get merged with the Lord at a time. The soul always exists, and the soul is not only one. The souls are many, they are unlimited in number. So that's how Krishna spoke about the eternity of the soul in the 12th shloka itself. So I guess you remember when Krishna was speaking about Asochan Anasochastvam Pragyavadan Shavasade Gatasuna Gatasumscha Nanusosanti Panditaha. He said, you are talking like a Pandita, but actually you don't have the qualification of Pandita. Who is a Pandita? A Pandita means one who knows the three things, one who knows what is Upeya, what is Upaya, and what is Virodhi. If he knows these three things, then he is called Pandita. And what are these three things? Here in Arjuna's connection, the Upeya is the soul, and Upaya is the means to attain, to realize the soul, and Virodhi means the thing that has to be removed, or the thing has to be not considered very seriously while reaching that goal. That is called Virodhi. So these three things, one who understands these three things is called Pandita. Krishna said this in 11th shloka. So in the 12th shloka, Krishna is speaking about Upeya. Upeya means the goal. The goal is the soul. So he spoke about the explanation, the eternity of the soul in 12th shloka. And there was very beautiful description about how Ramanujacharya explains the eternity of the soul, and the Vaishnava point of view of explaining the soul and the Ishvara and the difference. And we learned about Bhadita Anuvritti also. I hope you remember this term, Bhadita Anuvritti. So there was a very beautiful queries asked by Vedanta Deshika and Ramanujacharya. So that was a beautiful discussion happened in 12th shloka. Now in 13th shloka, usually acharyas, they give us connection. It's called Sangati. So when you see the shloka, you understand what could be the question asked before. Like a person is talking in a phone, talking over phone. We are sitting here and somebody is talking over phone, but we don't see the opposite person, the other person who is talking. We don't hear him. We hear what he is talking. And based on his answer, we can assume what that person is asking. Similarly here, based on the shlokas we have here, we can assume what could be the question that he would have asked, and Krishna is answering. So Krishna, he said, Natvevaham jatanasam natvam neme janadipaha nachaiva nabhavishyamaha sarve vayamath param. Arjuna, you don't worry, we all will exist always. We all existed. We are existing, and we will exist also in the future also. So don't worry, we are not going to miss anyone. We will be here. And there is no need to worry about the temporary of this body. Asocyan Anmasochastvam Gataso, Agataso. So Gataso means don't worry about this body because this body is anyway temporary. And Agataso means the subtle body. Again, it is not going to get destroyed until we get liberation. So Gataso, Agataso. And then now we have the 13th shloka, Dehi nosmin yata dehe kavamaram yavvanam chara tadat dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namukhyati. Now why Krishna is speaking about this shloka? Then Acharyas, they give us the hidden meaning. Now Arjuna would have asked a question, or he would have this query in his mind. Okay, Krishna, I understand the soul is eternal, but what about this body? When the soul is eternal, why we have so many different kinds of body? Why we have birth? Why we have death for the soul? When you say soul is eternal, then but we see people are taking birth and they are getting died. So how to understand this birth and death in relationship with the eternity of the soul? Then and also Arjuna would have assumed, okay, Krishna, I understand the Bhishma, Drona, their souls are eternal, but I'm going to hurt their bodies. Their bodies are going to get destroyed. I cannot see their body anymore. So I'm worried for their bodies. So in this way, Arjuna would have asked this question, or he would have this query in his mind. Having understood this query in mind, now Krishna is explaining, Dehinaha asmin dehe kaumaram yavvanam chara. Arjuna, even in this lifetime itself, for this soul, even in this one lifetime, we have changed many bodies. Kaumaram yavvanam jara tataha dehantara praptihi. Again, when this deha when this body is going to get destroyed, then praptihi, again he is going to get new body. Dhiras tatrana mukhyati. An intelligent, a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. That's what Krishna says. Now, what is the meaning behind this? Arjuna, when someone takes birth, we don't cry. When someone grows little bit, we don't cry for that. We actually celebrate. We celebrate birthdays. And then when somebody becomes a child, then from baby to child, we all celebrate. And child becomes a boy, we all celebrate. A boy becomes a teenager, we all celebrate. A teenager becomes youth, we all celebrate. And then youth become a middle-aged man, again we celebrate. And middle-aged man, again he becomes old, still people celebrate. But when somebody leaves the body, then immediately we cry. Why that is happening? Because anyway we are changing body in this life itself. When we are changing the body, we don't cry. Nobody is crying when the body is changed. The similar way, when the soul is changing from one body to another body, we should not cry, Arjuna. During that time, we should be little bit dhira. That's why Krishna says we should become little bit dhira when the body's change is happening. Because anyway, the soul is not getting destroyed because we have the experience. Like Buddhists, they say at every moment, it's called Kshanikavada. Kshanikavada means every moment the soul is changing. We don't have the same soul. Soul is changing from 1 second to another second. But Adi Shankara, he says there is no Kshanikavada because the soul is eternal. The soul doesn't get changed. Why? Because I see a person suddenly in Kashi, and then I recollect him. Oh, I saw you in Mathura. I saw you in Dwaraka maybe 10 years before. You are the same person. Yes. So if the soul is changing, then we would have forgotten that person completely. But we still remember that person and we can again relate to that person. That means the soul doesn't change. So similarly, when we look into the mirror, or sometimes we can think how I felt when I was 10 years, how I felt when I was 20 years. Now I am feeling the similar kind of feeling, consciousness inside, but my body is completely changing. So this change of body, it's keep on happening, and then this will happen, and then the person, one who was residing in this body, he will change and he will go to new body. He will go to new house. So a person, if he's changing his new house, we should not cry because he's going for some good house. This house is already old and useless. So he's taking up a new house. You should not cry for that, Arjuna, because this body is anyway temporary. That's what here Krishna is meant here. In the previous shloka, Krishna spoke about eternity of the soul, and in this shloka, Krishna is speaking about the temporary nature of this body. This body has jayate. Jayate means it takes birth, and then asti, it stays for some time, then vardhate, then it grows for some time, then parinamate, then it reproduces, it makes byproducts, and apakshiyate means it dwindles, and then vinashyati, it gets destroyed. So this body undergoes this 7 kinds of changes, but the soul doesn't go any the 6 kind of changes its body undergoes, but the soul doesn't undergo any of the same changes. So you should not be worried, Arjuna, because anyway this Bhishma and Drona, they're all old now. Their body is going to get destroyed anyway. So anyway, if they get destroyed, if their body is destroyed, then they will take up a new body. You should not be worried about it. You should be worried about one person. Whom we should be worried about? We should be worried about when someone dies without understanding the nature of the soul or nature of the Lord, then we should be worried. Otherwise, a person who is about to die, if he's already self-realized, we should not be worried about that person. Then Krishna here, he uses the word dhira, dhira spatrana mukhyati. Who is dhira? Dhira means dhira, one who uses his intelligence. Dhi means intelligent. So here, Baladev Vidyabhushan, he gives a very beautiful definition for this dhira. One who knows the maturing karma and then the swabhava of a soul is called dhira. That means for the soul, 2 things are happening. 2 things are acting in this material world. One is our karma, the second one is our swabhava. These 2 things are acting on us. The karma which is acting on us, it is in the form of our body, that is called prarabdha karma. And then the swabhava, the impressions, that is also acting on us, that is called different situations in our life, different happiness, and then different distress that is happening in our life. So in these two things, we cannot change our karma, because this is prarabdha karma and it is in the form of this body. We cannot change this body now. So we have to suffer in this prarabdha karma. We have to suffer, we have to tolerate this body that is there. But what happens when we are living in this body? Various situations are kept in front of us. That is called swabhava, due to our impressions from various lifetime. The impressions are already recorded, and these impressions, they come out and they give us different situations. So during those different situations, how we react, and according to that, we get liberation. So we have karma, we have this body, and then we have impressions, we have different situations in this body. So usually what happens, people, those who have this material body, due to their karma, they act according to the impressions. They don't use their intelligence, they act according to impression, and then they suffer, and then again they get entangled, and then again they have to suffer, again they get entangled. This is what happens. But when this impression arises, when this swabhava arises, what we should do? We should use our intelligence. Intelligence means here Shastra. We should see the Shastric rule, and we should understand, okay, this is not the correct way to do, I should act in this way. So when we act according to Shastra, then our impressions get destroyed, and then we get good impressions, and then we don't have this, and then the prarabdha karma ends, then we get liberation. So we have to clear our impressions also before we can get liberation. So prarabdha karma and also impressions, both has to be cleared. And how impressions can be cleared? That is by means of following the instructions, the knowledge from Shastra. And we have given this example previous also, like Dhruva Maharaj. So Dhruva Maharaj, he has got this prarabdha karma as a kshatriya body. Due to his prarabdha karma, he has born a kshatriya. Now various situations are kept in front of him. Now under his swabhava, under his impressions, he got disturbed by his mother's piercing word. So now he started to act based on his impressions, based on his swabhava. He wanted to make revenge, and he started to go to forest. Now what happens? Narada interferes, and then he explains to him, and then he teaches him the Shastra, and then now his mind changes. Now he is not working on impressions, now he is not working according to his swabhava, but now he is working according to the Narada's instruction. Now what happens is Swabhava changes, his impressions changes, he becomes pure, he takes darshan of the Lord, and then he gets liberation. Even this prarabdha karma goes away, and then Lord offers him, you get liberation. So this how we should also understand. We are in this body, and when we are living in this body, we are put into different situations according to our impressions, according to our sabhava. Now, how we should act? Whether we should act according to our will, according to our three modes, or according to Shastra. If we act according to Shastra, then we get liberation. And how this will happen? By means of a devotee's intervention. So with this devotee's intervention, we become dhira. That's what here Lord is saying. We should not act, we should not be worried, but we should rather follow the Shastric injunction. That's what Lord says here. And then the temporary nature of the bodies, again, it is explained in this 13th shloka. So dhira statrana mukhyati, a dhira who is because his prarabdha karma is finished, so he is leaving his body and he is going to another body. So you should not be much worried about this. And if you go through Bhagavatam, practically there are many stories we can bring where the Atma Jnana is spoken very much. Right from the beginning of Bhagavatam itself, we can find this Atma Jnana, the science of the soul and the temporary nature of this body is kept on taught in this Bhagavatam, because that is a basic of the spiritual understanding. Then Krishna speaks about next two shloka. Now we understood two things. One is Upeya, and the second one is Upaya. Sorry, the second one is Virodhi. Here Upeya, the goal is soul, and Virodhi is this temporary body and also our impression. So when we just remove this body means when we understand the temporary nature of this body, then we can think about the eternal nature of the soul. And then now Virodhi is given. Virodhi, what is Virodhi? Matra sparshasta kaunteya sidosha sugadukkadaha agamapayinamnitya tantitikshashva bharata. And then yamhina vyatayante de purusham purusha rishabha samadukka sukham dhiram so amrtatvaya kalpate. So these two shlokas, it speaks about upaya. Upaya means the means to reach to realize the soul. The soul and the enemy is this temporary nature of this body, and the upaya, the means to realize the soul, is this one. What is that? Tolerating the dualities. Matra sparshasta kaunteya. Here matra means tanmatra, five kinds of tanmatra. Sabda sparsha rupa rasagandha. Then sparsha, that is the five senses and the five sense objects. So when we are in connection with these five senses, with the sense objects, then various kinds of feelings, various kinds of pleasure and pain arises in this material world. And then when we are towards our goal, all these things, they will arise. So a person who is a dhira, he should try to tolerate this, and he should attain that goal. So that's what here he says, Amadukka dukkam dhiram, sama dukkha sukham dhiram, so amrtatvaya kalpate. If you can tolerate this dualities, then you become a dhira, then you attain the amrta, that is eternity, that is the eternal nature of the soul, that is liberation. So here again the word dhira is used. Dhi iryate dhiraha. Dhi means intelligence, and iryate means one who uses his intelligence in the path of dharma, in the matter of dharma, is called dhira. So a person who knows the goal, that is soul, and who knows the way, and who knows the means, that is following our dharma, and then while following his dharma, there are various dualities which arises while following the dharma. So what one should do, one should try to tolerate them. That's what Krishna says here. Because anyway, these dualities are temporary, and in order to achieve something, we should do tapasya. Like rishis, they do so much tapasya, tolerating these dualities in the forest. Similarly, as a kshatriya, now it is your tapasya to tolerate. Yes, it is my duty as a kshatriya, I should fight. Whether it is against Bhishma or it is against Drona, I don't care, because it is my duty, I should do it. How Drona and Bhishma they are doing? They are fighting in front of you, and they know that you are a best student, you are his best student, and you are his grand son. Still, they are doing as a duty. Similarly, you should learn also. You should try to do your duty, and then while performing your duty, there may be so many dualities they come in the between. But if you are fixed in your goal, then you will be not disturbed by means of this dualities. And then Prabhupada gives many times, like a person who wants to advance spiritual life, he has to make some kind of tapasya. He has to wake up early in the morning, even though it is very cold, to take bath. Still, he has to wake up and he has to take bath, because it is mentioned in the Shastra. So I should take bath. So I should not worry about the dualities. There is a nice story in Bhagavatam, like an arrow maker. So arrow maker, he was making his arrow, and while making his arrow, he knows what is his target. He fixed his target and he knows the measurement, how much distance the arrow should travel. And then while traveling, the arrow should not fall down, because the arrow is very light. And then also the arrow should not be too much heavy also, so that it won't reach the target. So arrow should be in a proper weight, so that it will reach the target properly at proper time. Otherwise, the target will run away. So he should calculate everything, and accordingly he should make his target, his arrows. So he was making his arrows, fixing his target. And then while he was doing that, there was a huge procession happening. In the king was walking, and then so many musical instruments and so many drums, kettle drums, so many sound they were making, so much sound they were making. Huge procession, so many people were walking. But this arrow maker is so absorbed in his thought, in his work. He's so fixed. He's not at all bothered about the sound, and he couldn't even notice the sound was happening. He was making his arrow, and after some time, someone came and they told him, yeah, you didn't see the king procession was happening. Oh, I didn't see that. Why? Because he was so fixed in his goal, so he couldn't hear anything. That is real dhyana. That is in the midst of all our confusion, all our disturbance. If you are fixed in your goal, then you can reach your destination. Otherwise, even if you go and live in a very peaceful place, if your goal is not fixed, you will not be fixed. Even if you go inside a forest and you try to live in a forest in a secluded life, but when your goal is not fixed, when your mind, when your intelligence is not strong, then we will be disturbed and we will be thinking so many things. We will go crazy, and then we will run away, run again to the city. But even if you are living in the city, in midst of all the chaos, all the confusion, if your goal is fixed, then you won't be disturbed. So that's what Krishna says here, that when your goal is fixed, you don't get disturbed, you don't feel. They won't feel also. It's not that they don't get disturbed, but they don't even feel the happiness and distress, because their happiness, their goal is different. Like a person is traveling in a car to reach his destination. Like we have a vacation, and then during this vacation we want to visit our house. It's been like 10 years we didn't go to our house. So we have taken our car and we are traveling. While traveling, there may be a little bit inconveniences, or maybe some good things happen while traveling on our way. But it doesn't mean we stop in that places. Okay, this hotel food is very good, so let me stay here. Or this road is not good. Okay, let me stay here. I'm not going to travel in this road. No, we just tolerate this little inconveniences. Why? Because we know the goal, that I'm going to reach this goal. So while reaching the goal, we don't take this inconveniences very seriously. In a similar way, in the path of reaching that that soul, that realization of the soul, there will be some dualities, and we should just try to tolerate the dualities. If you can tolerate this, then you are qualified to get liberation. So Krishna said the essence of what he is going to explain in the second chapter, in the beginning of this 3 shloka itself. So this 3 shlokas, that is the shloka number 12, 13 and 14, 15. This four shloka speaks about the three things, that is upaya, upeya and virodhi. So Krishna is going to just elaborate these three things in his full second chapter, and whole Bhagavad Gita is this, and whole Shastra is just these three things. We have seen this in the beginning of our introduction class itself. Praptascha brahmano rupam, praptuscha pratyagatmanaha, praptipayam palam praptehe virodhistata, vadanti sakala vedaha, saitikasa puranakaha, veda vedanta vadinaha. So Shastra, they speaks about these five important things. That is about the Lord, about the soul, about the means to reach that Lord, and then the fruit or the result after attaining the Lord, and then the virodhi, the enemy between the soul and the Lord. That is the five subject matter. So Krishna in the second chapter, here our goal is soul, and our means to attain that soul is performing our dharma in the midst of our dualities, and the virodhi is the temporary nature of this body. That is not understanding the temporary nature of this body. So Krishna is going to explain these three things in the rest of the second chapter. So I will end here, and we will see you all on Wednesday. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.